before October 7th, they'd ask, who do you sympathize with more, the Israelis or the Palestinians? And it was plus 48 for the Israelis.
Yeah.
It's now plus 1 for the Palestinians. And
in the U.S.
In the U.S. And to just think, so basically a 50-point shift in a little over 2 years. Shapiro is weaker and more of a laughing stock than ever before. You know, like it's just very odd. But then at the same time, who won the policy? Had the national debate. We won. And yet we're at war with Iran on behalf of Israel. And I think what you're getting at is like, that does just feel totally unsustainable. Shapiro called me out recently and called me a bunch of names and then she said, I know, I can hear Dave right now saying, debate me, bro. Like, if you believe this, why don't you debate me? And he goes, no, I don't debate with it. But he's kind of right in a way that is my response.
Of course.
I mean, I only have one speed. It's all I know how to do. Like, come podcast with me. Like, I don't know anything else. Those boys died for nothing. That's over. And if you continue this, more boys will die for nothing.
That's correct.
Look, I'm just going to say it right now. This might be one of the most important conversations about foreign policy I've seen in a long time. Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson sitting down together, and they're not pulling any punches on Israel, Iran, Trump's Iran strikes, and how guys like Ben Shapiro have completely lost the plot. And here's what's wild. They're walking through how the entire narrative on Israel-Palestine has shifted 50 points in 2 years. 50 points. When does that ever happen? And spoiler alert, it's because people like Dave and Tucker actually won the argument in the court of public opinion, while the corporate media and the neocon grifters got exposed. But here's the kicker. Even though they won the debate, we're still at war with Iran on behalf of Israel. So what gives? Let's get into it.
Broadly speaking, it's not only like we've won the debate, we've like just crushed and it's not just me, there's lots of people involved in this, you more so probably than anyone. But when you see, like, you look at the polls, there was this one poll I saw, and this is just one poll, but there's a lot that back this up, but that it was before October 7th, they'd ask, who do you sympathize with more, the Israelis or the Palestinians? And it was plus 48 for the Israelis.
Yeah.
It's now plus 1 for the Palestinians. And
in the U.S.
In the U.S. And to just think, so basically a 50-point shift in a little over 2 years. And Tucker, I mean, I don't know, you were doing this for longer than me. When does that ever happen? When does any issue ever swing by 50 points in 2 years? It would be like if I were to tell you in 2 years, this country would be 95% pro-life. It's like, whoa. What happened in those 2 years? Yeah. Well, I mean, the pro-lifers must have really won the argument. You know what I mean? Like, and so now that we've had, for the first time ever, a media environment where, say, Israel is not completely protected. Like, what were the debates about supporting Israel on MSNBC or CNN? No, they don't exist. They never happen. You're not allowed to have those debates there. There's not, maybe like one kind of critical of Israel host will slip in here or there, but if he says too much, he's getting fired pretty quickly. And so we essentially won the debate. It's not close. It's not.
But
there's not a question
so
of
fast.
Yes, in a very short period of time, because there was actually a fair, open media system now, where it was really democratized in a way, and so you can't look at you're bigger than you've ever been before. Candace Owens is bigger than she's ever been before. I know I'm bigger than I've ever been before. Ben Shapiro is weaker and more of a laughing stock than ever before. Like it's just very odd. But then at the same time, who won the policy game? Mark Levin. The president is tweeting, go watch Mark Levin's show today. And his base, his voters are going, I think I'll check out Tucker Carlson. I think I'll. And so. Yeah. So anyway, there's just this very weird thing where, like, we won the argument. We had the national debate. We won. And yet we're at war with Iran on behalf of Israel. And I think what you're getting at is, like, that does just feel totally unsustainable. Like, there's either you got to clamp down on these guys like us, or you got to reverse the policy. And Really hoping it's the latter.
People don't like to be criticized for their mistakes, and I know this from having a wife and children. Totally fine to be, criticized for something you feel confident is the right thing. But if you screw something up and someone says, say, I told you, you want to shoot the person. It's very hard for people to deal with that. And so if you have a war like this, which is obviously, this is one of the most profound moments of my lifetime. Mm-hmm. This is much more profound than 9/11, I think. Thankfully, not as, very relatively few Americans have died, but you can see that this is the end of something. And the consequences are very, very serious. In the middle of that, to criticize the decision to start the process that led to this, it feels like you're going to be punished for that.
Yeah.
Do you feel that?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And I almost, like on some, I don't know, in some way, I feel like the political thing or the wise calculation here would almost be to be like, Mr. President Trump, you did such a phenomenal job with this, and it's such a success that we should just stop right now and declare victory or something like, you know what I mean? But I'm just no good at being a political operative. I'm only good at telling the truth. Like it's all I only have one speed. Ben Shapiro called me out recently and called me a bunch of names, and then she said, I know, I can hear Dave right now saying, debate me, bro. Like, if you believe this, why don't you debate me? And he goes, no, I don't debate with it. But he's kind of right in a way that is my response.
Of course.
I mean, I only have one.
Okay, hold on. Let's just pause right here for a second, because Dave just absolutely demolished Ben Shapiro without even raising his voice. And I need to talk about this. So Ben calls Dave out recently, right? Mocks him, says, I know Dave's going to say, debate me, bro. And Dave's like, yeah, you're kind of right. That is my response. Because here's the thing, and I know you guys already know this. Ben Shapiro will debate a 19-year-old college kid about pronouns all day long because he knows he can dunk on them. He'll set up the whole thing, bring the cameras, get the viral clip. But when it comes to someone like Dave Smith, who actually knows the history, who can follow the money, who understands the donor relationships and the corporate incentives behind the forever war machine, radio silence. Complete radio silence. And Dave just said something so simple, but so devastating. He said, I only have one speed. I only know how to tell the truth. That's it. That's the whole game. Because when your entire worldview is built on actual principles, instead of whatever your donors need you to say that week, you don't have to do the mental gymnastics. You don't have to remember which lie you told on Monday versus Wednesday. Ben Shapiro knows, and Dave said this explicitly, Ben knows his ideas can't hold up in an actual debate with someone who's done the work. That's why he won't do it. It's not because Dave isn't serious enough or doesn't have the credentials. It's because the second Ben has to defend why American kids should die for a foreign country's regional ambitions, the whole thing falls apart. The second he has to explain why we're sanctioning Iran while giving Israel $40 billion a year, it crumbles. And Tucker's point about the free market of ideas, man, that hit hard. Because we're supposed to have that in this country. That's the whole foundation. But what we actually have is a media landscape where MSNBC and CNN won't even let you question unconditional support for Israel without you getting fired. Tucker mentioned it. Maybe one host slips through here or there, gets a little critical, and then they're gone. You think that's an accident? But here's where it gets really interesting. Dave just laid out the score. Public opinion shifted 50 points in 2 years. 50. Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, all bigger than ever. Ben Shapiro, a laughingstock. His own audience is starting to see through it. Meanwhile, Trump's tweeting, go watch Mark Levin, while his base is like, actually, I think I'll go watch Tucker Carlson. So they won the argument. They won the national debate in the free market of ideas. And yet, we're at war with Iran on behalf of Israel anyway. You see the problem? The people lost the policy fight even though they won the argument, because the policy isn't made by the people. It's made by the donors. It's made by AIPAC. It's made by the defense contractors who need another war to justify the budget. Dave said it perfectly. This feels totally unsustainable. Either you clamp down on guys like us, or you reverse the policy. And I'm with him. I'm really hoping it's the latter. But man, I don't know. When you've got this much money invested in keeping the war machine running, when you've got this many politicians who've built their entire career on never questioning Israel, when you've got media outlets that are structurally incapable of hosting this debate, how do you reverse course? Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this shift. Do you think the policy will ever catch up to where the public actually is? Or are we just going to keep fighting wars that nobody wants except the people making money off them?
Know how to do. Like, come podcast with me. Like, I don't know anything else. So,
well, because you're rooted in kind of the old America where, there was a free market, not just in the economy, but like intellectually, free market of ideas.
Yeah, we're supposed to have it at least.
That the whole country was built on that.
Yeah,
idea.
and so, but
Ben Shapiro and et cetera, they don't share that view at all.
He knows the ideas can't hold up. I mean, he'll debate a 19-year-old gender confused kid because he knows he can win that debate.
Yeah.
It's not that kid's more serious than me. That's not really the issue. But anyway, I guess. So just that, like, I only have one speed. I only know how to just tell you what I think is really going on here, and I think you're right. I think this is such a disaster because Donald Trump, first of all, it'd be very difficult at this point, even if he wanted to just stop the thing, which I think he does at this point, want to stop the thing. I think it seems to me like he believed this could be quick and easy like Venezuela, and we're way past that at this point. But he can't just stop now. But obviously, there's the Iranians and the Israelis are involved in this too, and it doesn't seem like either of them want to stop right now. No. So there you got a big problem. But also, look, this isn't Venezuela. There's I don't know what the latest CENTCOM numbers are. I thought 13 dead Americans was the last I saw. The 150 plus wounded number came out weeks ago. I don't know what that's up to now. Our bases and in the region have been very badly damaged. The damage to the global economy is so it's not Venezuela. You can't just come out of this and then pretend something really great happened. If he stops right now, then it's like, oh, you just started a disaster for no reason on behalf of a foreign country. Like, this is just awful. And then there's a couple factors. I've seen this play. I know you've seen this over the years, certainly during the global war on terrorism, where there is, I guess, what you could call like the sunk cost fallacy of war, exactly, which is the worst of all sunk cost fallacies. But it's you go, well, those boys died for nothing if we don't finish the job. And it's like, oh, man, is that a bad trap to get into? Because the reality is that those boys died for nothing. That's over. And if you continue this, more boys will die for nothing.
That's correct.
And so no one, Pierce Morgan had a panel once, or a debate between Scott Horton, who is as you've had him on the show, the most incredible foreign policy guy in the country, like just unbelievable levels of brilliance. And his books, Enough Already, Fool's Errand, which are about the global war on terrorism, are the best books written on the subject. His book Provoked about the war in Ukraine is the best book written on the subject.
They're literally exhaustive. I only know Scott Horton because of you and what improvement to my life.
Yeah, I mean, he has been such an incredible resource. Like, he's a great friend of mine, one of my closest friends, but he's also he's like my mentor in the foreign policy stuff. And he's just so great because he's such a tool because he's got a photographic memory. So like, I can literally just call him at any point and you'll just be like, when Iran invaded Iraq in 1980, in 1982, weren't they fighting here? And then he'll just be like, yeah, they were fighting here and here. And then this guy has all their names and everything. It's really incredible. But so he was debating Wesley Clark on Pierce Morgan's show. Talk about the new media world that we live in and how crazy it is now that Scott Horton gets to square off with a 4-star general. And Wesley Clark, who, look, I have my issues with him, but he did give us that great admission about the 7 countries in 5 years. So I'll always kind of be grateful to him. Now he tries to walk that back, but we all heard what you said. But he goes at one point talking about, I believe it was Gaza, if I'm getting this correct. He said this was while it was still, intensely going on. And he goes, but if we just leave now, then Hamas gets to say they won. And you're like, sir, general, that's your opinion on war? Yeah. But that's...
All right, so let's bring this home, because I think Dave and Tucker just laid out the entire problem with American foreign policy in one conversation. And it's not complicated. Here's the bottom line. Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson won. They won the argument. Public opinion on Israel-Palestine swung 50 points in 2 years, because for the first time ever, there was an actual open debate happening outside the corporate media bubble. People heard the other side of the story. They saw the receipts. They followed the money. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, all the neocon grifters who've been selling the same bomb Iran talking points for 20 years, they're weaker than ever. Their own audiences are tuning them out. Trump's base isn't watching Shapiro anymore. They're watching Tucker. They're watching Dave. Because people can smell a grift, and the grift is so obvious at this point. But here's the tragedy, and Dave said this explicitly. Even though they won the argument, we're still at war with Iran on behalf of Israel. 13 Americans dead, 150 wounded, probably more by now. Bases destroyed, the global economy taking a hit. And for what? So Bibi Netanyahu can stay in power? So defense contractors can justify another $100 billion in weapon sales? Dave made the point that Trump probably wants to stop this now. I think he's right. I think Trump realized this wasn't going to be quick and easy like Venezuela, and now he's stuck. Because if he stops now, he just started a disaster for no reason on behalf of a foreign country. And if he keeps going, more Americans die, the economy gets worse, and we're right back in the forever war cycle that he ran against in 2016. And then there's the sunk cost fallacy of war. Dave brought up that Pierce Morgan debate with Scott Horton, who, by the way, if you don't know Scott Horton, go read his books. Enough already. Fool's Errand, Provoked. The man is a walking encyclopedia of foreign policy. Dave called him his mentor, and you can see why. The guy has a photographic memory, and he's done the receipts on every single one of these wars. But Scott was debating Wesley Clark, and Clark said, and this is the mindset, he said, if we just leave now, Hamas gets to say they won. And you're like, sir, that's your opinion on war. That's not strategy. That's just ego. That's just the sunk cost fallacy. We already spent the money, we already lost the troops, so we have to keep going or it was all for nothing. But here's the truth that nobody in power wants to say out loud. Those boys already died for nothing. That's over. You can't bring them back. And if you keep going, more boys will die for nothing. That's the reality. But admitting that means admitting you were wrong. And politicians would rather send 1,000 more kids to die than admit they were wrong. Dave said something that really stuck with me. He said, I'm not good at being a political operative. I'm only good at telling the truth. And man, that is the difference. That is why Dave and Tucker are winning in the court of public opinion, while Shapiro and the neocons are hemorrhaging credibility. Because when you only have one speed, the truth, you don't have to remember your lies. You don't have to check with your donors before you tweet. You just call it like you see it. So here's where we're at. The American people don't want this war. The polls prove it. The shift in public opinion proves it. But the policy hasn't changed because the policy was never about what the American people want. It's about what AIPAC wants. It's about what Lockheed Martin wants. It's about what the donors want. And that, right there, is the fight. It's not left versus right. It's not red versus blue. It's the people versus the donor class. And guys like Dave and Tucker are on the front lines of that fight, whether they plan to be or not. Drop a comment and let me know. Do you think Trump can actually pull out of this? Or are we locked into another decade of Middle East wars because the machine is just too powerful to stop? If this video opened your eyes to how the grift works, smash that like button, share it with someone who still thinks Ben Shapiro is fighting for the little guy, and subscribe because we're just getting started. Welcome to MB. Stay sharp. I'll see you in the next one.